I see that there are some questions for yourself and Miss Lee. We shall address some of the questions now for Miss Lee. Yeah. One of the questions for Miss Lee is to ask that not all employers will accept a person with epilepsy. So is there any way how you can deal with this situation?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. I empathize with that reality that not every employer will accept someone. However, I think sometimes we conjure up this in our head. I'm not sure whether is it because we think that they may not accept us, or whether have they outrightly said that they don't. You know, because it also really depends on what sector of work we are looking at here. And if you think that someone will not accept you, then I think that's not a good way to start. You know, you should really just go for it. Really, just go for it. There's nothing to lose, right? I mean, if you know that that particular employer does not accept you, and if you are confident enough to ask why, I think it is good to ask. And then if for some reason, you know, it's not really working out, then just keep going on. Keep going on, keep telling more people about how you're managing your epilepsy. And I think at some point, you know, you will land on one finally. And of course, don't be too choosy if you really do need a job, right? To start with, it's always good to start small. And climbing up, you know, I see the second half of the question is about doing well in my career and dealing with stress, right, at the corporate ladder. So I think first to set the record, right, I'm not really in a corporate job, okay, because I'm working for a not-for-profit organization. But the truth is that there are some times that I actually don't deal with it very well. The stress still manages me from time to time, you know, and I sometimes find myself that, by the time I realize I'm too stressed, I have already lost maybe 2 nights of good sleep. You know, these things happen. But it just means that I have to be very intentional about then what do I do in the weekend? What do I do in the next week? You know, that can help me to bring that balance back. Is it asking for a little bit of flexible work arrangement for the next week? You know, is it making sure that you go for a walk and you kind of sweat it out and then you sleep better that night? Yeah, whatever it is, you know, that's how you really manage yourself, just as what I mentioned earlier about self-care. Yeah, so don't worry about climbing the corporate ladder, as well as, you know, especially if that gives you stress. It shouldn't be about, work shouldn't just be about climbing the corporate ladder. Especially for people like us who live with epilepsy, it's about becoming more and closer to the day that you can become seizure free, right? That is my goal. I earlier heard Dr. Tan mention this, and that is my goal, right? It's not about the corporate ladder, it's about becoming seizure free one day. And by the way, if you do your job well and people get promoted and you move well, I mean, all well and good, you know, thank God for that. But I also know if it comes to the point that my work is going to take over my whole life and I'm not going to have good sleep, then it's also my job to go back to my bosses and say, I think that might be a bit too close to the line. I need to pull back a little bit. So it's really our choice and our options to exercise and be intentional about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lee. Yeah, earlier the participant actually asked about how you manage your current work stress. But do you recall when you were younger studying, I do believe there are younger participants who have epilepsy. So how do you manage the school stress, your peers, and study?
Yeah. Well, I can't say I managed it very well, which is why I had 4 relapses. In fact, you know, my first major relapse was right on the last day after I finished my final year project in Polytechnic. You know, it was right on the last day when I was out celebrating the end of my 3 years in Polytechnic. And right there and then in the public, you know, I had an attack. And one of the members of the public tried to help, but did the very thing that Dr. Tan said not to do, which is to stuff the spoon in the mouth, right? And so off I went to SGH, you know, in that state. But as a young person, it is not easy to manage stress. I will state this. It's not easy, but there are ways, right? And everything starts from realizing yourself that you don't manage your stress very well. if you're a young person and you think, I manage my stress very well, I think maybe that you might need to ask the people around you, do you actually manage your stress very well? Because if you are managing your stress very well, people will not come to you and say, hey, don't be so stressed, you need to manage. Yeah. So there are ways as a young person. One is make sure that you surround yourself with very good friends who you can trust. Tell them what is causing you stress, you know, and when they give you advice, and if it's too much advice as a young person, you just say, I just need you to listen. I just need to de-stress. You know, it's that. If you like sports, do something, you know, that will not endanger your own life, of course. Yeah. But as a young person, you got to know yourself well. So start from there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Is there any advice that I'd like to give to a person who is also interested in pursuing early childhood career in early childhood education?
Yeah, I saw that question. It's such an amazing one. I would say yes, speak to your doctors, speak to your physician, speak to your neurologist, share this. I'm not sure where exactly this person is in his or her journey to moving towards that. But it is very well possible to find a job in early childhood. It should not stop you from studying, because it doesn't, in early childhood, it may not mean that you are just teaching children. Right, there are many other jobs that you can do within the sector that may not really need you to have direct contact with children. For me, I wanted to be a teacher per se, right? So I spoke to my doctors, we declared it, we talked to them, find a good, prayed for really good employers who would be open. And like I shared, I was very upfront on what are the support systems I have around me that will help me to manage my epilepsy. So I think that does give employers confidence as well. But if it's just about studying, just go for it, I would say. Yeah, just go for it.
Okay, thank you for the inspirational talk. I do believe many people are inspired by your talk. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I'd like to ask Mr. Cole. Mr. Cole, thank you for helping people with disability and the disadvantage. I think there are some questions we'd like to ask you. How do you advise employers about employing people with epilepsy?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
you hear me?
we can. Yes.
Okay, first of all, the time has changed a lot. There's a lot of there are jobs available for whether you got epilepsy or no epilepsy. A lot of supply and demand, seriously. So basically, because you see, there are a lot of restriction in the last few years, there are jobs available for people. Now, employee has no choice. If they want to employ a foreigner, they need a quota system, and they also have to pay a high salary nowadays. So they are all looking at this area that's why my placement is 100%. I can place people very easily. It's about job matching. So the question asked me, can get you a job? I can guarantee I can get you a job, right? Then second thing is about expectation. What you expect and what the employer expects. So a lot of times jobs don't work is because there's a mismatch of expectation. So my advice for employer is that actually they need you more than you need them, frankly. Because to get for example, a Filipino working for you in a restaurant, you need so many PRs, there's so Singaporean to actually qualify to get one person. So the job demand is there. So second is about managing expectation, what you want the job and what the job should be. So for employer, my advice for employer is that look at the skill, look at the person, look at the ability, not disability. So for example, I'm looking for an accountant. My accountant here is kidney dialysis, right? And my accountant in Singapore is mental. So basically, they are able to do the skill. Look at the ability, not disability. And you'll be very surprised. It's not a matter they want a job. Some of these people need a job. So you'll be surprised they can do very well. So employers are actually quite open to, nowadays employers are quite open to employing people with disability.
All right. Is there any training that you provide before you employ this group of people with disability of epilepsy?
I screw up big time. When I first started, I really screw up because I don't know how to place people, right? But over the years, I learned. So one of the things I learned very importantly is there's 3 steps. First, educate them. First of all, what is it that they want to do? What's the scope of work? How can they do the work? What's the work environment? Secondly, educate be fair to everybody. Just because Singapore don't have minimum wage,
Yeah.
and just because you have challenges, even if you've got epilepsy, people don't pay you proper, right? Because when they see your application form, medical, forget about it, right?
Yeah.
So second thing, very importantly, is be equitable. Third thing, educate the co-worker. That's what I always tell people, because at the end they, that's where I screw up. Bosses are very nice. Bosses want to do a lot of good things, right? Want to save the
Yeah.
world and employ, but educate the co-worker, and you'll be realize once you sort out the co-worker, things are more easier.
Yeah.
The co-worker, your friend may not be there, your mom and dad may not be there, but the one person who's going to be there when you have this thing is the person you work with, and you'll be very surprised. Singaporeans are quite generally quite kind one. They actually do know how to handle, but it's not because they don't know what to do. It's not because they don't want to do. It's don't know how to do. So
Yeah.
normally what we do is we educate the co-worker. That's our priority.
Yeah.
I hope I
Thank you.
answer your question.
Yes, yep. Mr. Koh, I also like to find out, because you know that in Singapore we do have people with epilepsy who are normal education, but however there are also a group of people with special needs. So with this group of people with special needs and epilepsy, is there any way that we can gain appointment for them? Yeah.
In Dignity Kitchen, I just give you some idea. We are trained physical, mental, social, intellectual.
Yeah.
17 years old to 87 years old, people who
Wow.
are terminal illness with hospice. We train as of today thousands of Singaporeans, and we place them. Many of you may not have heard of us because you don't need to see us.
Yeah.
You don't have problem at home. Why you want to see us for? So if
Yes.
you see, just walk into Dignity Kitchen. The guy
Yeah.
who clay pot rice is one-handed. The
Yeah.
guy who do the chicken rice, we got all these up. They're all together. But you'll be surprised, they can work together because they understand they need to work with each other. You'll be very
Yes.
surprised you got that person selling coffee. So coming back to your question, actually, don't look at their disability, look at their ability and they can work. By
Yeah.
the way, we are winner of the Asia 50 Best Restaurant, and my
Yes.
Kolomi and all that is very award winner.
Wow.
But done by
Yes.
who? Done by
Yeah.
autistic kids. So
Mm-mm.
whether they are autism with epilepsy, which is this is what happened in my mama's store, by the way. My boys have three different disabilities in one shop. But I can tell you, they're Down syndrome and they're very good at selling things, right? So that's the one thing I thought maybe. Hello, can you hear me? Oh, sorry, I got a message here that saying you can't hear my voice. So basically, look at the ability, not disability, because we handle entire range of disabled people. I'm in Hong Kong now, by the way. And the same issue, disability is universal. Hong Kong has its own. I got a girl here who has epilepsy, a man here who has epilepsy. You know what he do? Every time I go to a field, he give out money. He take out his wallet and give out money. Which is, I don't know, maybe the doctor can explain to me better, but why do you do that? Right? I don't know. So we have to calm him down and put his money back in the wallet. Right. So, okay. So suffer good. So basically, coming back, we handle multiple disability. First of all, create the right environment for work where everybody understand everybody. Right. Second thing, educate your staff, because everyone know each other's problem. And those who are coming in to work in Dignity Kitchen, they also know how to handle situation. And thirdly, the most important thing, be patient. You need to be very, very, very patient, because different disability highlight different issue. And don't worry if I say I don't know anything. By the way, we are surrounded by a lot of very good doctors. You know that we have doctors who help us every time we need a help. You know, when we come, people with epilepsy come and see us. I also don't know what stage of them. We'll send it to a friend of mine and say, can you see? I tell, oh, Dr. Umar, can take this out? He said, can take lah. We have a lot of very kind people, doctors who support us one. Because they're like bipolar, I also don't know what to do. So I would take, you can bullshit us in terms of the medication. Let me tell, no, sorry, you can bullshit us in terms of doctor's letter. You can't bullshit us in terms of the medication. So normally we take and ask a doctor friend, can you take on? So that's why you're 100% success. We are not funded by government agencies. So that's why a lot of time we cannot get it wrong. You're talking about human life. And we place 100% based on the things that we learn over the, we made a lot of mistakes. Come on, and there's no bullshit. We learn a lot of mistakes. But now, at least, you're quite good at what we're doing. Quite unique. Okay, I hope I answer your question. Look at the ability, not disability.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I think we have a participant who also would like to find out. I mean, being a person without any disability, will you employ this group of people to work with you, especially to help people with disability and the disadvantage?
Come. Actually, that's why I said the uniqueness of what I did was to create a platform. It's a hawker center. Come and eat the food, see for yourself. And like every day now, we have people who come and help. We pack we pack over 300 meals every day for poor, right? For needy, at vendor meal every day. So if you guys happen to be free, those people who are able, come and help me to pack lah. And you happen to be at $4.50 or $4 or something like that, buy one meal, that's all. I mean, everybody can play a part. What I did was unique is I created a place where you got physical, mental, social, intellectual. And every day we go in nursing home to bring the elderly out for lunch, right? Engage them. Now we can open. So the disabled people cook, the elderly people eat, and I get people to come and work with them and engage them, right? Come and see Dignity Kitchen, that's all. And if you want to see epilepsy cases, you can always go to my mama's store. You see cases where they are mixed disability coming together, and they are the best salesmen you can see. I can tell you that. Those young kids, my little manager, they can, by the look of your face, their face look at you and you should buy my book already. That's why they're good salesmen. For those in the hospital, I don't have Tan Tock Seng yet, okay, but maybe one day Tan Tock Seng will give me a space. Okay, answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I have one last burning question, which I think is also from one of the participants. So if they are interested to look at your project Dignity or Dignity Kitchen, how can they contact you or where can they get the details? Yeah.
It's a very simple question. Answer. Just come into Dignity Kitchen. All my managers, all these are all trained to explain everything to you. Just walk in, talk to any one of them. Look for my GM, look my AGM, my marketing, they're all there. And they are all very good. I mean, because they came in and they helped me. Just walk in. Anyway, go there for Laksa. I mean, you can, at the same time, you can talk to my people. And you realize all are very supportive. Okay? Just walk in, come have lunch.
So we can can we Google and search for the different?
No, it's 69 Boon King Road.
69 Boon King Road. Okay.
Yeah, it's a big red building. You can't miss it. The car park is across the road. You can't miss it. There's a big rare house. Hey, the story is very good. I started only one store at Balestier Market behind Tan Tock Seng. Now it's one complete warehouse and one complete floor at Shanghai Kai, 618 Shanghai Street in Mong Kok. I'm here now actually. So basically what I'm trying to explain, just walk into Boon King Road and see for yourself. It's educational. I don't care who you are. Go and see a place where epileptic, mental, physical, all working in one platform. By the way, there are 103 people working there. 70 people working there. There's another 30 working. But there is another cafe that we started, right, which is run by a girl with epileptic, right? And she runs a cafe. Very good, right? So basically, they all can work on. It's a matter of me giving them a chance, that's all. Okay? 69 Boon King Road.
Yes, we'll take note of that, 69 Boon King Road. Yeah, so we'd like to thank Mr. Cole and Miss Clara Lee for your sharing today. We have some time left. Perhaps we can address some of the questions the participants have for the doctors. Yeah, so we'll look at some of the questions that the participants may have. Maybe one of the questions we can address to either Dr. Tan or Dr. Chiu is to ask with epilepsy will go off as times go by. Perhaps we can ask Dr. Tan to address this question.
Hi. So whether epilepsy goes off with time, okay, generally that again depends on the underlying cause, like we mentioned earlier. So if you're talking about childhood epilepsy, some that patients can outgrow of, such as epson seizures, for example, or epson's epileptic syndrome. So those can, but they're very few and very selected. But if you talk about a person with epilepsy from a stroke, for example, where the pathology has happened and it's static, then the epilepsy itself will not go off in such patients. So you see, to answer that question, we have to relook at what is the underlying cause of the epilepsy to begin with. But does having epilepsy being unresolvable in these patients mean that they have to suffer a of recurrent seizures all the way? No. In these patients, most of them can still, a significant portion of them can still obtain, and be free of seizure with careful selection and careful selection of medications that are appropriate to their seizure type and their risk factor profile, and side effect profile. Sorry, make that mistake. I hope that answers your question, though, Stella.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Tan. We have one question by another participant who is actually asking, after going through epilepsy surgery 29 years ago, the person no longer have any seizure but still facing auras at times. So this person is asking whether can he be considered being seizure free now. Maybe we can ask Dr. Chiu to help to address this question.
Hi, thank you for the question. So basically, aura might not necessarily always mean seizure. So I think it's best to know, it's hard to comment at this platform, mainly because we need to know what is your baseline seizure and what was the surgery about and your medical records, and then to see what actually this aura is about and what type of aura you're having. And because different conditions, even in neurology itself, has different can present as aura as well. So like I mentioned earlier, that aura might not necessarily mean seizure, but best is to speak to your neurologist and to see and to find out what is the cause of your aura before we call it either seizure or any other conditions. Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Chiu. We have one question by a participant who is actually asking whether is there any application or smart watches, etc., that Singaporean with epilepsy generally can use to detect early signs of an attack. So at the moment, because this person who has epilepsy nor his caregiver can detect any impending attack. So maybe perhaps yourself or Dr. Tan can address, because this person brothers is actually also visually impaired.
Yorong, do you want to take this one, or would you rather I?
You go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. There are devices out there. There are devices in the market pertaining to detection of seizures. What they do is they look at vital parameters. They also look at the surface muscle signal. So there unfortunately, this kind of seizure watches, seizure detection devices, are not common in Singapore, and most of them are. If they're apps, they'll be tagged to the Apple Watch, but if they're not, then there are separate devices specifically to detect seizures. And you can import them into Singapore. The key is most of these devices are not their literature is supporting their use, and to support their safety in its application, quite limited, and it's usually driven by their own companies. But they are out there in the market. And they're also very selective pertaining to the type of seizures that the patients have. For example, if you have epsilon seizures, but there are no muscle contractions involved for most, this kind of devices will not be appropriate, and neither would it be useful. So if I were going to summarize the answer to yours, yes, there are apps out there. You should discuss with your neurologist to see whether this particular device is appropriate for your brother. Anything else to add, Yirong? Dr. Chu, sorry. Anything else to add, Dr. Chu?
Yeah, I think it's well answered. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tan, for answering this question. The next question, I would like to address it to Dr. Chiu. This person actually says that the seizure, his or her seizure occurs only when he's about to fall asleep. It has never happened when the person is awake about during the day. So is it a usual occurrence for a person with epilepsy?
Oh yes, that's a very good question. Mainly because yes, there's this group of patients that have sleep seizures or sleep epilepsy, and usually for this group of patients, the seizures only occur at night when you're going about to go to sleep, and usually it doesn't happen in the daytime. Yeah, so it's actually quite. I mean, I wouldn't say very common, but it is such a group of patients. Mm.
We maybe would like to ask Dr. Chiu to also help to address a question by this attendee. How affected on the brain and with doing some more activities like neuroplasticity can help building up. Sorry, I'm just trying to see. Does also learning slow? I mean, does it affect the learning as well, or how can parents help?
Okay, if I understand the question correctly, does
Yeah.
it mean, I mean, you're trying to ask whether neuroplasticity can help with epilepsy patients in any way?
Yes,
So,
correct.
okay, so to understand, or to answer that, first of all, we have to understand what's neuroplasticity and we usually apply it in the neurological term. So basically, neuroplasticity, we say that there is a possibility that our neurons and neural cells can be actually retrained to take on some of the functions that have been lost. For example, this is usually used in patients with stroke, and after a major stroke, they have a part of the brain that's not really functioning because of the scarring from the stroke itself. And therefore, neuroplasticity plays a role in trying to take over the function of the scarred tissues or the function of the brain which have already stroked out. So this is the common application that we use in neurology for neuroplasticity. So for epilepsy per se, I think it depends on what help or what do you mean by helping with epilepsy by neuroplasticity. But I think there isn't much evidence or much application for neuroplasticity use in seizure or epilepsy at this moment. And the second part of the question about the learning, help with learning, I suppose is that you will worry or concerned that epilepsy is affecting the learning and some of the memories or cognition. I think it depends on what's the cause of the cognition and the learning issues to begin with. A lot of times it's because of medication side effects that you really need to discuss with your neurologist. And it depends on how frequent and how well controlled is the seizure and the epilepsy as well. That might lead to some form of negative impact on your cognition and memory. So there are a lot of aspects that we are looking at in terms of learning and cognition. So it's very difficult to really make a blanket statement at this point in time. But I would suggest that have to discuss with your neurologist and find out what's the cause of that. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Chiu. I think we have time to address one more question. This participant is actually asking, the daughter is actually taking epilepsy syrup and recently switched to the tablet form with the same dosage. However, she noticed that since that the daughter is having more episodes of seizures like 2 to 3 times a month compared to 2 to 3 months one seizure. And how long does this person have to monitor to determine if this seizure is working for the daughter? Dr. Chiu, please. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, I think there must be a reason why your neurologist switched from a syrup form to a tablet form. So basically, there are a lot of reasons why so-called the medicines doesn't seem to be working. But factually speaking, syrup and also tablet form, usually the change and the dosage is the same. So it shouldn't be affecting much in terms of the efficacy, but what can affect it is, for example, let's say the absorption is a problem. And the compliance, we also need to know whether or not we are taking it correctly at the same timing or usual dosage. So I think there are a lot of reasons that might affect the efficacy of the medicine. It might not be due to the switch from a syrup form to tablet form itself. So I think it's also best that if you think that switching of this medication is actually causing or it's not really working for your daughter, then I think it's best to talk to your neurologist about it. Yeah, but I think just summarize the question is that switching from syrup form to tablet form, factually speaking, from the dose and from the medication point of view, it shouldn't be affecting the efficacy much unless there are other factors. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chiu, Dr. Tan, Mr. Koh, and Ms. Clara for your sharing today. I do believe the participants have greatly benefited from your sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, before we end, May I now invite Dr. Chiu Yi-rong, Associate Consultant from the Department of Neurology in National Neuroscience Institute to give his closing address. Dr. Chiu, please.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, so thank you everyone for spending your Saturday morning with us. I hope this forum is useful for everyone and has helped us in some way that to understand more about epilepsy. Moving forward with the easing of our COVID-19 restrictions, we look forward to more activities, on-site outdoor activities in the future, and hopefully we'll be able to engage more frequently with everyone. So once again, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again. Have a restful weekend. Thank you.